Many drummers have tried to copy John Bonham's drum sound over the decades, and there are very good reasons for doing so. Most of them have to do with trying to achieve a heavy sound, and this is particularly true for Alex Van Halen on the album For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. On this album, Alex Van Halen didn't just want big drums, he wanted Bonham-sized drums, and he went on a relentless mission to capture the thunderous snare and earth-shaking kick drum that made John Bonham legendary. And the reason that he did this is really interesting. I'm going to tell you about it, at least my theory, in this video. So right now, I want you to listen to something that Michael Anthony and Sammy Hagar had to say about how Alex practically lived in the studio during the recording of the album, spending endless hours experimenting with microphones, EQ settings, room acoustics, drum setups, and literally cases and cases of snare drums to try to find the sonic fingerprint of John Bonham. The engineers and producers would tweak and test and reset all under Alex's direction till the drums were just as massive as he wanted them to be. So let's check out what Michael Anthony and Sammy Hagar had to say right here.
Alex was always chasing one thing throughout all of this: John Bonham's snare drum sound.
And kick.
And kick. You wouldn't believe how many people he drove nuts. I mean, there would be cases, snare drums coming in all the time. Al definitely is a drummer that had, well, like everybody in the band, but Alex had a very unique drum sound, especially his snare. I mean, he probably had, to me, the best snare sound in rock and roll.
Absolute most identifiable. I mean, I could tell Al the second the drums had come in. I mean, you could tell Eddie's guitar sound. I mean, Van Halen, like I said, everybody had an identity for sure. Roth had an identity. You had that vocal identity, but Al's drum sound, he really chased it.
But Al used to drive producers, engineers, everybody nuts with that. That was the one difference.
He would go in later on, like now, he'd go in for a week or two ahead of everybody else and just try out every place in the room, move the drums over here, tune it, snare like this, do this, put that. I mean, I would be, call me when you guys are ready. You know, it's like, he really went on a rampage on this record, but it's a badass sounding record.
Yeah.
So now there's a really important reason why Alex was so obsessed with the weight and heaviness of John Bonham's drumming. Yes, I know every rock drummer of the 70s and 80s was obsessed with John Bonham, but there's a particularly interesting reason in this case, which is because of the turn that Van Halen had taken musically in the late 1980s. Songs like Why Can't This Be Love and Love Walks In weren't just popular with rock audiences, they were pure pop songs altogether. Big radio hits with synthesizers, soaring harmonies, and Sammy Hagar's vocals aimed squarely at a radio audience. And these tracks gave Van Halen an enormous amount of success, but they also moved them away from the rough, hard-hitting sound of the early David Lee Roth years. So by 1991, the band was at a crossroads. Would they stay on that pop trajectory, or would they swing the pendulum back toward heavy rock? Now, here's my personal take. I think Alex wasn't just chasing Bonham for the sake of doing it. I think he was making a statement. Van Halen at that point had started drifting, and their hit ballads were climbing the charts. Ed's guitar tone had gotten a lot cleaner, didn't sound quite as garagey anymore, and on For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, there were some heavy songs that Ed had written that gave Alex an opening. Songs like Pound Cake and Judgment Day gave him a chance to pounce, and he did. And by chasing that Bonham-inspired drum sound, he was trying to anchor the band back into heavy rock territory, keeping Van Halen's core identity alive. When you dig into the album itself, you can hear the tug-of-war between heaviness and pop hooks. Tracks like Pound Cake, Judgment Day, and Pleasure Dome lean into metallic riffs, and Alex's massive drum sound pushes them even further in that direction. When you get to songs like Right Now, if you took Alex's pounding snare and kick drum away, it would be a pop anthem the likes of We Built This City on Rock and Roll, with keyboards and major key progressions and sing-along hooks. But what makes it feel heavy is Alex's drumming. as if he's there to remind everyone this is still the same Van Halen. And let's not forget, at this point, Van Halen had also started to stack harmony vocals all over their records, and this gave the band a stadium pop sheen, and it was a good idea. Michael Anthony's a great backup vocalist, and it really pushed the envelope of their sound, but it also created more of a pop veneer to the overall Van Halen sound. And my thought is that Alex was trying to get this big drum sound just to counterbalance that shift that the band was taking into pop radio territory. So here's my question to you. Do you think that this is the case? And if so, do you think Alex succeeded? Did For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge feel like a return to Van Halen's heavier roots, or did the ballads and pop hooks still just push it deeply into the mainstream? Let me know what you think by dropping a comment below. I'll be reading all of them and responding to as many as I can, as usual. Like I said, I think that Van Halen's sound was always built on heavy guitar in the early days, with the drums almost trying to play catch up. And in this case, by the time Ed's songwriting had evolved and his keyboard playing had sort of taken center stage, I think Alex was pushing the drums up now to be the anchor of the heavy end of the band, and I think it was a really good move, and I think they did a good job. I also think that for as many drummers who have chased the John Bonham sound, it only works in certain circumstances. It isn't a cure-all for a heavy band to have a Bonham-like sound. And in fact, these days it might even work against you. This is what I think, but what really matters is what you think. So if you have an idea about this or any other topic connected to classic or contemporary music, please drop it in the section below, and remember to like and subscribe. Thanks a lot.
Music Guru here, asking you to help us on our march to 10,000 subscribers.